have you test out the game and then release them 2 days later, and then have everything broken and people don't like the game, and we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot. It's better for us to take our time, get that feedback early, make those changes, and really push that. And I think that will continue throughout the development history. So even after we've released the closed beta and we're in open beta, you'll continue to see us add in these features that aren't necessarily 100% complete in order to get feedback. And even after we're out of beta, you'll see even more of those kind of things coming online. Hopefully we'll get better at our processes, and so that those features are more and more complete before the release. But I think you'll still see us try out some wacky, crazy stuff to try to get feedback from the community as quickly as possible.
That's really awesome. I was hoping you'd say that. I feel like, I don't know, games have just been being really pushed out as quickly as possible just to sell them and make money, but there hasn't really been that passion, at least that we've seen, to be honest with you, where people really try and push the boundaries. So it's really refreshing to hear someone who works for a game studio really buy into that, which is just fantastic. So will there be layered in-game voice over IP for maybe voice over IP for armies or squads and local chat?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working on that right now, actually. I think the first thing you'll see come up is just the basic squad-based voice over IP, and then follow that up with army-based voice over IP, depending on the complexity of those features. The one thing that people have been asking for, so I don't know if you guys are thinking about it, but it's a local voice over IP, so you can talk and only local people can hear you. That's something we're probably not going to do just because of the way we're building the system. We don't want to have a central infrastructure for our voice over IP, and that kind of limits what you're capable of doing. We want basically to spread the load over all the different users, so it's peer-to-peer voice over IP, which allows us to not have to host massive servers in order to handle all that traffic. But it does limit the capabilities that you can't really do positional things because you might be sending traffic to somebody that's not even close to you. But so just to answer that question, yes, we will have voice over IP, but we're not going to do some of the cool stuff that you might see in other games like Battlefield. I think even Battlefield has this, but maybe not. PlanetSide, maybe. But anyways.
Yeah, PlanetSide does have that. We actually use it to recruit a lot. That's why our outfit got so big. I think if we were to go and do it in your game, we'd probably get banned because we love recruiting people in any way, shape, or form. Right,
yes,
so,
we love making friends.
We love making friends. So you mentioned before esports, which we're into. We really like playing competitively. We like organizing teams. So how is that going to work? Are you going to have dedicated servers where people, well, it's probably not going to be possible for this game, but how will practices work for teams?
So one of the things we already have in the game right now is a challenge system. So it's easy we just changed it actually with this latest patch that you can actually challenge up to one-on-one, up to whatever the maximum is for the map. So like if you want to play Sunken Harbor, you can go one-on-one, two-on-two, all the way up to 5v5. To just hop into a challenge match, do any practices, and you can keep doing that over and over again. In the future, we talked about doing like army-based servers, so you guys could rent out a server that's private to you, so you can modify things associated with it, like how many kills it is to complete a map, or how long the map lasts, points, things like that. How respawn timers, so you can kind of change up what's going to happen. That's probably a future goal, though, and definitely not something we're going to tackle until open beta at the earliest. But that's also a monetary thing that we might have. There's no guarantees on that. Like I'm just letting you guys know that we're a free-to-play game, so we have to look at ways that we can monetize certain things, and renting servers is a real good way to do that because you guys would probably be renting a server for Call of Duty or Battlefield or whatever else you want to run anyway, so it's not a typical thing that people are afraid to do.
Yeah, it's definitely already proven grounds that you probably can make a little bit of money on the side for. So you mentioned that it's a free-to-play game, so about money sinks, like real-life money, how detailed is this Red Bean shop going to be? Like, will I be able to completely customize my entire character? Can I buy symbols and make my own special shapes out of them? Like, for instance, I don't know if you ever played APB, but they have a really detailed yet kind of clunky way of designing everything. Will you have that in Firefall?
We love those systems. One of the ones we always point out is the Forza. Forza, I think, does a really good job at being able to customize your car and have all the different shapes and build up different things. To start with, that's not something we have currently. That's something we'd love to have. We do have the decal system currently, but it's pre-built decals that we have. It wouldn't be too difficult for us to make that layered and then work that out, but that's just development time that we'd rather put towards completing the game at this point. You're absolutely right about selling customization, though. That's one of our biggest things that we want to sell is customization. So we do hairstyles, different faces, heads, colors, war paints, decals. We want to move that into potentially doing different taunt animations, or dances, different particle effects for your weapons, different things that don't affect your actual gameplay, because that's one of the key points is we don't want to sell anything that's going to create more power for you. So you're not going to be able to buy armors that are more powerful, or can buy a weapon that's more powerful, and you can just go out there and win. No pay to win type items. The other items that we do want to sell, though, are convenience items, and this is where the trickier things come into play, especially for free-to-play games, because it's a fine line to walk between creating those inconveniences that people buy and pay money for, while not making your game too inconvenient that nobody wants to play it, right? You have to walk a tightrope there. So things like speeding up manufacturing processes, increasing resource gains or XP boosts or things like that are convenience items that we're selling. But cosmetic and convenience are the two focuses.
Very good. That's another thing I really wanted to hear too, because I know games where you can customize the way you look, and the way maybe your car looks, your mount looks is just paramount. People buy into that and will spend $100. We have people that have spent like $1,400 on APB. So
It's
I agree.
crazy.
Yeah, seriously. So as far as player mounts and vehicles go, I know that you have the one motorcycle out right now, but how far are you going to take that? Will you have like a rideable giraffe, for instance?
Rideable drive. I think a rideable Bronodon has been requested first.
Yeah.
But we do have plans for more vehicles. I think our next big plan is to do kind of those pre-built flight paths for the dropships that we kind of had in our earliest demos, and we never really implemented into the game. Those won't be pilotable, but then really once we start working towards our open world PvP, I think you'll really start to see some of the cool vehicles come online, because then you can really get into the Army technology trees and pushing those out and see things like tanks and flying vehicles and all that kind of really cool stuff.
You mentioned army vehicles. So each army will have their own specific list of items that they can create?
Well, that's the idea. So right now, this is future thoughts. So please don't take anything I say as a promise, but it's kind of things that we've talked about. But Army technology tree is to actually, so you as an Army will work on your technology tree to push forward to unlock, say, more advanced technologies in ground vehicles, which might give you convoy vehicles for carrying resources, or maybe a vehicle with turrets on the back, or maybe even a tank or something like that, or maybe just like APC carrier, so you can move your troops around. Those kind of things you might want to focus on a tech tree in order to unlock, but those are bigger things that an army would have to work towards rather than an individual. And then the individual can actually tech out the fact that they can drive those vehicles, or they can actually build them for you resources, or rent them from the army, or however we decide to implement those features.
Very cool. So now, are we going to be able to customize our own mounts or these army mounts, maybe with a logo? Say if I want a DigiRev logo on the side of a tank or a helicopter, would that be possible?
Yeah, definitely in the future. That's one of the big things we have in our Army design doc right now. We just basically implemented our very basic and rudimentary Army tech tree, or excuse me, design right now, which is just the roster management, name and tag kind of thing, just to get the social structure in there. But we wanted to, like with our decal system, we want to have the customizable decals that you guys can create your own colors, so that when you're in PvP, you actually are wearing your own custom war paint that represents your army. You have your own decals associated with that. Whether those be things that we upload, that's something we still talk about, like whether we allow you guys to upload your own images and then they get approved. But then there's a lot of overhead like that. Red 5 is still a small company, so we have to kind of keep conscious what kind of impact this has on manpower. But definitely customizable in some form.
While we're on the Army subject, one of our hot questions for the night. Currently, the Army is capped at 24 users. Are we going to be able to expand that to a higher number, or an infinite number of users in the future?
Yeah, so the idea here is that this is going back to the Army tech tree, is that you would expand your technology in order to handle more people overall. However, there will always be a limit. I don't expect to ever see 3,000, 4,000 person armies. The reason for that is that we want to have gameplay elements that are directly impact the armies. And the larger the sizes they are, the harder it is to create really impactful gameplay elements, because then you have to deal with the Zerg rush of just this, the Goon Squad comes in and they have a million members and there's really no way to deal with that. So what we'd rather do is do smaller armies and then work with alliances and have limitations on those, what alliances are capable of doing together, so that there's actually some more communication going, but the army is still a very personal and very cool thing happening.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if you ever played Guild Wars 2, but I found one of the things that was actually detrimental to the game was the fact that they lost the big PvP aspect of it, where it's not really Guild Wars anymore. It's Zerg versus Zerg on different server wars. So I was really disappointed with that. So I understand that you guys want to keep the army small, just that we usually have a lot of people, and we usually grow our guild or clan or
Yeah, our
army
planet side.
pretty large.
Our planet side outfit's around 850 people right now.
Yeah, and what I see people, that's totally great. And what I see teams like yours doing is typically they break up into different squadrons or different platoons or different things like that, and kind of create a hierarchy out of the different armies. So you'd have one that's, DigiRev 1, DigiRev 2, DigiRev 3, and then you'd create alliances between them and have different roles, which also allows you to then really specialize. So, you might have DivRed mining, that's all about mining and going out there and harvesting resources. But then you also have the DigiRev convoy, who are all about transporting those resources, or the DigiRev refining crew, because the tech trees are going to be built in such a way that you could theoretically build out everything you want in the tech tree, but it will take you a long, long time to do it. It'd be much more viable to you to have multiple teams and then specialize and then do a good alliance and trading between them.
Cool. So as far as PvE is concerned, do you plan on having different squad sizes? Like right now it's capped at 5 now. So if we're doing I don't know, maybe a big event, will we be able to have maybe army-sized squads, 25 people or 10 people?
Yeah, we want to do we don't know what to call it, really. This is the hard part. Naming things at Red Side is very difficult, as you can tell by the things like red beans. We're not very good at naming things. But squad, we want multiple squads to be able to group up together to do things like Bane Claw event and other things, to create kind of a raid system. So you'd have 5 squads grouping up together, and then there would be one group that would all get the same benefits and bonuses out of it. Yeah, we talked platoon, we talked squadron, we talked assault group. It's a bunch of different names tossed around, but the name doesn't really matter. The idea is just that you can have multiple squads building up into a larger group. What that maximum size is, though, we don't know. It really kind of depends on the content we're creating.
Very good. So as far as enemies and world bosses are concerned, do you plan on creating a huge amount of them? Because I definitely feel like in MMORPGs and games like them, it's really important to have a lot of different enemy types.
We'll keep creating them as long as people keep liking them, and then just depending on how much time we actually have. Baneclaw, that is currently in the game, was kind of a test just to see, 1, are we capable of doing something on a large scale? 2, are we able to do that in the open world, and how does that affect the open world? And then 3, do people actually enjoy it? And so far people have been, and we found some benefits and some negatives to it. So we're going to go back to the drawing board and figure out how do we make these even better, and how do we do bigger and better events. And I think you might see some instance ones come online, some more open world ones come online. The idea of Titans has been in our game for a long time, these creatures that come and attack entire cities, and the whole world kind of fights against them. So I think you'll see more and more of those things come online as we have time. Right now we're very focused on core game mechanics and making sure we have enough content so that we can go into open beta and people will stick around long enough to let us make some of that stuff.
Yeah, I definitely like that the new thumpers, after you updated it with, after you patched it, have been a lot more difficult. So for instance, the improved thumper, the advanced thumper, it's almost really impossible to do with just a basic size squad. And I definitely feel like you don't want to make things too easy, even though people will complain about it, because then it's not challenging. If it's not challenging, people are just doing it just the grind. So definitely, if there's a lot of difficulty and skills involved, I think the game will definitely blossom.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of feedback about that. I think right now we need to find the balance between the difficulty and the rewards. The rewards may be a little bit low for what the difficulty is for those thumpers in particular. But yes, difficulty will increase quite a bit, especially when the AI servers are working properly and those guys get pretty deadly. The new Chosen have been a big improvement to the game. We added snipers, engineers, the grunts, and that definitely changes how the attacks against chosen incursions and stuff like that happen. 2 new chosen invasions against Stump Dump and Sunken Harbor are pretty cool. I've seen Sunken Harbor get taken over countless times. I don't think anybody's actually beat it completely.